Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez and you're watching my YouTube channel, The Teenage Movie Critic. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everybody, and in today's video, we are reviewing the newest film that came out in theaters called Sinners. Now, if you guys know me, this was actually one of my most anticipated films of the year, partially because this is a new Ryan Coogler film. If you don't know who that is, he's the guy that directed the first Creed, as well as the Black Panther films from the MCU. And me personally, throughout all the films that Ryan Coogler has directed, I think he's probably one of my favorite directors of all time. And I think that, especially when you look at especially the Black Panther films, he's able to make something that is so entertaining and likable, where we want to learn about that. We want to do an MCU film, a superhero movie, all these movies that we all like, but he's able to make them entertaining, action-packed, do comedy, but he's able to add like his own sense of storytelling to it that makes it really interesting, with the score and the performances and the characters and the settings and the color blending and all that stuff. And he just does things really well. And I think that's probably his best thing about his films. And with Sinners, it is a vampire movie starring Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld, but it's actually a lot more than that. It's a vampire movie, but it's also a musical blues film, a film about music and the blues, and a underground gangster movie. It's like a gangster, basically like Goodfellas in the 1930s, with black folk. And, well, sort of, without the Italians. So that's basically what I thought about it, and I'm like, that just sounds awesome. Like, I love this. I like this genre blending stuff, and I'm like, if anyone can do that, it's Ryan Coogler, because he already did Black Panther, he already did Creed. Let's see what he does with this. And the reviews for this movie have been just so great that Warfare has been known to be one of the best movies of this year. Since it came out, everybody has been saying it's a great, theatrical movie experience. But Sinners, everybody is saying, yeah, this is actually the best movie of the year. Just straight out handling this one. And as soon as the movie finished, even after the post-credit scenes and stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute, I will actually say I can definitely agree with them that this is definitely one of the best movies of this year. And it might be my favorite. I'm still deciding whether I want to put it over one of these days, one of those days. But, so, yeah, let's just talk about it. Right off the bat, first off, I really liked the way that Ryan Coogler just came up with this new type of story. And that it's a vampire movie, but it's not just doing, the simple thing, there's vampires in this town, and they need to be stopped. It's not just that. It ties in with music and the 1930s underground crime. Which, in some ways, if any way of how he thought about this, I think it was an excellent way to tell this story. Because, essentially, what works so well about this film, the two other parts work so well about it. Let's talk about the music side of the things with this, because the music side, first off, the music, whether it's people singing or just the score or the songs, it's all great. And especially the electric guitar in the background throughout scenes, especially once we started getting into the vampire section of this film, it's really it's really interesting to hear, and I really enjoyed that part of the film. And I like that it's kind of a celebration of all music. That because blues music brings out the vampires, it kind of celebrates all like music in general. So like there's this scene where, Sammy is the one of the guys in the film. He like sings, and you see all these decades of music, even like later's on. And I'm sitting here going like, wait, I thought this was the 1930s. Like, how are these people here today in the 1930s? This does not look right. But at the same time, I'm like, well, that's clever filmmaking, if I'm not gonna lie. So I was kind of blown away with that sequence. But besides the music stuff, let's talk about the characters here. Of course, you got Michael B. Jordan here, not just by himself, but now him playing twins. And I think, and honestly, going into the film, I was kind of expecting, because in my opinion, I thought we were just gonna like the whole film was gonna be like, because in most movies when we get this, we kind of just go straight into the adventure. We don't really get to spend a lot of time with them. And I was kind of expecting we were gonna get more screen time with one of the twins, and one of the twins was, because we know one of them turns into a vampire. It's Stack. He gets turned into a vampire, and um, we were just gonna get focused on one Michael B. Jordan for the film, but that never happened. Um, but what makes this film so interesting, and we'll talk about this on with the other characters, is we actually get to spend time with both of them. We get to spend time with Smoke, but we get to spend just as much time with Stack, as we learn when he's with Sammy that like back in the day, him and his brother, they were they saw the country, they saw these different places and people, and they saw, people murdered on like any ways they've ever seen before. And they were in underground crime, they stole money, they are now World War I veterans, since this is the 1930s and before World War II. And it's just really interesting to think about, and especially that Stack, a black man, had a relationship with Haley Steinfeld. uh and even with Smoke, I loved. Well, actually, no, wait. Smoke is the one that has the World War I experience because he was a soldier. So I thought he was really cool. Or I think both of them are. I don't know. But going back into the other characters, all of the characters just feel like a lived in, and I think that's actually one of the things that's one of Ryan Coogler's strengths when it comes to a movie, is he's able to make all the characters feel lived in, feel connected, feel like they have a deep history with one another, and it makes the story interesting. Going back to what I said with, Stack and Haley and Mary, which was a very interesting relationship, or Smoke and Ruthie, the black girl's character that Smoke was going up against. Uh, I thought she was cool. Even all the other characters like Sammy and his little girlfriend or whatever. Yeah, that was good. Um, Eldon Delroy, I don't even know if I'm saying his name right, but he was also really funny, and he brought a lot of good comedic scenes to it. I mean, honestly, everybody is like praising him because apparently everybody's seen more movies than me. I only know him as one of the soldiers, those veterans in The Five Bloods. So I really don't know who this guy is. But for what he did in this film, he was actually really good. He was one of the highlights. So really all the cast really delivered. And even when some of the cast members, such as Haley Steinfeld, Michael B. Jordan, turn into vampires, it's actually quite great. And one of the other things I have to mention about the cast is I love their accents. It probably because I like Louisiana stuff and I like Princess and the Frog. I like Color Purple. But every time I watch that stuff, it's like, oh, I got a good feeling. Like, I love those accents. Like, it's so good. One other thing you got to mention about this film is this movie has a good amount of comedy. I mentioned with Eldon Del Roy that he has a good amount of comedy scenes, but what other scenes that kept the film going is it really did capture the 1930s aesthetic, which we'll talk about aesthetics after this one we'll talk more about aesthetics throughout this, but with the 1930s aesthetic, you have the usage of the N-word used a lot in here. Now, obviously, Michael B. Jordan, he's black, so he's allowed to use the N-word, but that's language used in Quentin Tarantino movies. This isn't a Quentin Tarantino movie, but, Quentin Tarantino, in a way, with the gangster side of this movie reminded me a lot of Goodfellas, and especially with Michael B. Jordan's character saying the N-word, it reminded me a lot of that, and I thought it really worked. But also, what made it really impressive with the 1930s aesthetic and how it ties into real life history is the way they did the vampire story. Now, I have a little bit more thoughts to talk about the vampire stuff later on, but essentially, with the way that they did the vampire stuff, essentially the film begins with the twins going to this realtor or this white guy, asking if we can get this big barn for a juke joint that they want to do for our black community. And this white guy, he's like spitting blood all over the place. I don't know what was wrong with him, like what's going on with him. And then later on, like as the juke joint starts, you get this scene where this guy is like being burnt alive, is half burned alive, and he goes to this family's house, and they keep him in there, and they all turn into vampires, and you realize that guy's the vampire. But it took me, and then I didn't realize, and that they showed the outfit of the Ku Klux Klan. And if you guys know, the Ku Klux Klan are trying to get rid of black people during this time, and that means the white guy that allowed the juke joint to get there was the guy. He's sort of part of the Ku Klux Klan, and he knows that he knows about the vampire history. That every time someone goes there, it lures something evil to go and kill them there. And so and because he's a Ku Klux Klan member, he wanted the black people to go there so that way they can get killed and murdered. And that's pretty evil. I mean, obviously, to many of you, it probably seems very obvious, but for me, especially learning that in history class this past year, I was very interested in that, and I really enjoyed that aspect about the film, and that it made it very dark. I'm like, they're actually taking a vampire story and tying it into history. I'm like, that's actually impressive, and it makes it 10 times more dark when you do it. And even with the even with when they do the post-credit scene where Sammy, he's a old blues player, and it's in the 1990s, and you see Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld in like these 90s outfits. And this probably is too soon to talk about, but if Ryan Coogler decides to make a Sinners 2, I wonder if this could be a franchise where, if this decides to be a franchise, I'm not saying it will be, but if this decides to be a franchise, I feel like all the other sequels coming after this could be a Sinners movie based on a different decade every time. This one was 1930s. What about the 1950s? What about the 1960s, 1980s? And since we have 1990s, do a whole thing in the 1990s. You know, get cops involved. Do a Goodfellas type movie where you get the white people involved and all that stuff. And you have that. And especially you can do something like this juke joint. You get this jazz club in New York. And you have to, and then you can actually do a lot of better things with making it like more action packed, which leads me into the vampire stuff. What did I think about it? I thought the vampire stuff when it started was fantastic, and I think because I have a few issues with it, but at the same time, I loved the way they built up to it, where you obviously knew it was lurking in the background with the guy at the house and the three people, the white people trying to come into the juke joint. But then once Haley Steinfeld comes back in and she starts wanting to get freaky with Michael B. Jordan, and that's when the tables start turning, and that's when the tension really starts building, where where Smoke tries to shoot her. You thought you lose Stack, and then you lose Cottonmouth. Not Cottonmouth, that's from Luke Cage. Cornbread. You realize he's one of them, and that's the thing I loved about once the vampire stuff turned, or actually that's what I loved about this film, is that the first half was like, the first two halves were getting to know these characters and all of this stuff, and then when the vampire stuff happens, you start to wonder who's a vampire. And obviously with the guy at the door and Stack in the door, you can obviously know it's going to happen, but with certain characters, like, you feel bad for them, especially when certain characters die in front of them. It makes it emotional at times, and it really works. Just all the tension building from sequence to sequence. They have to eat garlic to make sure they're not vampires. They have to make weapons to plan of what they can do. They formulate a plan. They make little weapons, and then they have this big little battle to fight the vampires off, which I thought was actually pretty cool. And then something else I want to talk, and then and then also the score throughout this one scene is playing really well. And then I will say the actual like vampire fight itself is cool. I kind of like, and we get more with that with the final shootout with Michael B. Jordan shooting all the guys, because he realizes he did this because he wanted to kill all of our people, and now he's getting it. They're getting it back. So I thought that was really cool. So here's where we come into my negatives with the film. So obviously, I loved that the first two halves was getting to know these characters, and that it wasn't just a straight out vampire film where we're trying to kill all these people and all that stuff. It wasn't that. It was getting to know these people, and then the big explosion finale was what it was. However, I kind of wish that the action scenes were a little bit longer. There's a few gun scenes in it, but it's not a lot. And, like, you get a little fight with the twins, some shootouts between Haley Steinfeld's character, but you really don't get a lot of action in this one. It's like the action scene with the vampires just kind of happens really quick. Same thing with the gunfire. Now, am I going to drop it down a grade just because I didn't like the action? No, because I still think it kind of delivered, and it was still I think it was still cinematic, and this wasn't really intended to be an action movie. It was intended to be a thrilling film with characters and stuff. So it kind of makes me think this is more of a gangster blues film that's celebrating music rather than being a vampire movie. So in some ways, it suffers a little bit because of that, but at the same time, I think that's kind of one of Ryan Coogler's weaknesses. It's like he knows how to do all the good storytelling stuff, but when it comes to action and excitement, I don't think he has trouble doing that a little bit. And maybe, I mean, I'm glad that, I'm glad that Ryan Coogler got to do something that he was passionate about, but, I kind of would have wanted a little bit more action, and that leads me into other stuff about the vampire stuff. The vampire lore, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense as to where these vampires come from. Like, so when Sammy sang, did he just awaken the vampires? Like, did he hear these black people? Like, did he hear Sammy across the way, and now he's awakened, and now he wants to go to those people's houses to find them? Is that what that is? Like how did these vampires start? But at the same time, it's like you're not really thinking about how it starts. You're just going along with throughout the experience. So there's part of it that makes me just want to drop it down a grade, but I can't really do that because I liked the whole experience and liked this whole world. And with the vampire stuff, it was actually really cool. So that's kind of my stuff. And then, of course, the post-credit scene and the end-credit scene, they're all good. I don't really have too much to say about it just because I thought it was good. But that is my little review for Sinners. To be honest, I loved this movie. I thought it was great. Possibly my favorite Ryan Coogler film, as it's more different. It feels like other movies, and it feels unique within his filmography. And I want another Ryan Coogler movie now, possibly Black Panther 3. But that is it for now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.